Joining me right now is the Washington Free Beacon, Matthew Foldi. Matthew, good to see you. Thanks very much. Assess the situation now. China obviously supporting Russia. We don't know what consequences President Biden put on the table. He said there will be consequences, but we really don't have any information from that phone call between the two leaders.
Well, good morning, Maria. Look, President Biden's weak and incoherent foreign policy is abandoning Americans and our allies and simultaneously driving our adversaries, namely Russia, which is led by Vladimir Putin, who Biden called a war criminal, and China, which is a genocidal regime. And the consequences of this are incredibly dire, right? So Russia is currently negotiating on behalf of the genocidal mullahs in Iran, an Iran deal, which is why Biden has to be weak when it comes to facing and deterring Russia in Ukraine. And that also explains why we were buying Russian oil as the country was invading Ukraine until finally we decided to shift from Russian oil to Venezuelan oil instead of, drilling here in America. And with China, we sent our Olympians to the genocide Olympics, even though we know that they were going to be surveilled and potentially blackmailed by the Chinese surveillance state. So China and Russia allying in the face of American weakness is incredibly concerning. But I think you're right to point out that we have no idea what consequences there will be here. Is Biden going to say we need regime change in China before his advisors say, no, he clearly didn't mean what he said in his planned remarks?
Yeah.
I mean, we have no idea.
So is that why we had all that rhetoric on Saturday from President Biden, all of the rhetoric, tough talk, ending his speech with this guy cannot continue to remain in power, which, of course, the White House is trying to walk back. What'd you make of that?
I mean, we have no idea who's actually running this country, and this goes back to a bigger point, which is we have a complete absentee government right now. And one of the things we reported in the Free Beacon last week is that Capitol Hill is closed to the American people. I walked all around over 10 miles on Capitol Hill, and I was astonished at how many Democratic offices are still closed. Closed. The Senate Homeland Security Committee Democrats are not meeting in person. There are a lot of threats to the homeland. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee Democrats, until recently, all through Afghanistan, all through the Olympics and our weak diplomatic boycott, they were not meeting in person. So the Democrats running this country right now are not taking any of the threats that we face, whether at home with inflation or abroad with China, Ukraine, Russia, Iran, seriously.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually, Matthew. Let's talk economics. The president will release his 2023 budget today. It's going to be targeting America's wealthiest with proposals to include a minimum tax of 20% on income, also unrealized capital gains for households worth more than $100 million. Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming joined me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures to walk us through what he expects. Listen to how he put it.
I'm expecting a Joe Biden budget that is still living in the past, as the president is on these issues. I expect the budget that we're going to see is going to be more debt on arrival, and it is going to be dead on arrival. Remember, last year he came out with a budget that was a pipe dream of liberal activism and climate extremism. And as you pointed out, last year's budget didn't even keep up with inflation on homeland security or on defense.
Matthew, Nancy Pelosi once famously said, show me your budget and you'll show me what your values are. What are you expecting the values of this budget to be? Will it be lots of spending on the clean climate change agenda, the values of the progressive left, and how high will taxes go? You think this is coming from Joe Manchin, that perhaps he's agreeing to vote for higher taxes so Biden figures he can get it through the budget?
I mean, look, Biden is living in the past on every issue, so it's not surprising to see that his budget will not reflect the reality that we live in. And it also, of course, jives with the Democratic strategy of denying that inflation is real. His budget does not match the economic realities facing Americans because it doesn't take into account that we're at a 40-year high in inflation right now. But you're right. Look, the administration's values are appeasing the radical left. That's why we can't drill in America despite rising energy prices. And it does not include strong military. Our defense budget is almost certainly going to face a cut, especially with regards to inflation. So the administration's budget, which I think Senator Barrasso was right, is almost certainly dead on arrival. is a reflection of the fact that the radical left, specifically environmental extremists who hate American jobs and energy, are the ones currently running the country. Obviously, I mean, we have a Department of Energy that does not believe in energy. So I think his values are out of step with American people on basically every issue that they care about.
I mean, you would think that we would see a little bit of a pivot, Matthew. I mean, now that we've got the approval ratings in the basement, you've got Americans clearly unhappy with the priorities of this administration, but they're still pushing through the climate change agenda. You saw what the Securities and Exchange Commission did last week, coming out with their new rules for all public companies to follow in terms of identifying emissions, not just emissions at the company, but emissions from customers and affiliates.
Look, Democrats know they're not running this country for much longer, and so they're going for broke, pun slightly intended here.
Yeah.
They need to pass their entire agenda in the next 8 months because they're not going to have unified control of America in a very long time, because the American people realize that, you know, the premise of Biden's campaign and the promises he made have been completely jettisoned in favor of the radical left, which has never been popular in America. So they're going to try and shove everything down our throats between now and November because they know they won't have an opportunity to do it again. That's why they're trying to abolish the filibuster and pass these bills to ensure that Democrats can never lose elections again. Fortunately, it seems like neither of those are in the cards.
Well, don't underestimate the number of executive orders that we may see so that they could get their agenda in that way as well, Matthew. It's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much. Matthew Foldi joining us this morning from the Washington Free Beacon.